climate change and sustainable development, and also promoting country projects, the most important one being the OECD accession, a national strategic goal. I have supported this process as Secretary General of the government and now the Vice President of the Committee for OECD with the Parliament. Our Parliament is fully committed to this process and strengthens its role in one of the most important international initiatives of Romania now. With each partner, the dialogue we have with our foreign partners, we ask for support for OECD accession. In March, together with my colleagues, we welcomed the OECD delegation to discuss the efforts that the Parliament has to make. Also in March, the Senate has adopted an essential law inspired by the best practices of OECD meant to increase transparency and accountability in public companies, to stimulate sustainable economic growth and to increase the strength of the public sector. In the end, I would like to ensure you that the Senate will act promptly and coherently to represent our national interests. Parliamentary diplomacy can and has to complement the efforts of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in order to strengthen our profile at global level and in order to adapt to an always changing international environment. Minister, thank you for your involvement, for the involvement of the former ministers and for the involvement of the experts of the ministry. And I completely trust your energy and determination to represent Romania with responsibility and pragmatism at international level. Thank you and good luck. Thank you, President of the Senate. We give the floor now to the President of the Chamber of Deputies, Mr. Sorin Grindanu. Mr. President of the Senate, Mrs. Minister, dear members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, it's my pleasure to talk to you with the occasion of the annual reunion of the Romanian diplomacy. In these times marked by deep transformations from all points of view, the discussions regarding the future of Europe and of the world that are being held these days have a stake that I believe is without precedent in the latest years. In this dialogue, it's imperative for the voice of Romania to be heard and, in the end, listened. Dear members of the Diplomatic Corps, on your shoulders there is a huge responsibility. You, those that are in the first line of the discussions to promote the interest of Romania, play a determinant role for this goal. We are all aware that in order to efficiently promote the legitimate interests in this difficult geopolitical context, first of all, we need to have a lucid analysis and realistic clarifications domestically. So I welcome the opinions of the professionals in the field who are today present at this reunion, and I believe they should represent also a moment of reflection and analysis for the decision makers. Ladies and gentlemen, to the Russian aggression, to the instability in the Middle East and the trends of manifestation of authoritarian regimes, only a real complementarity between the EU and NATO can answer successfully. The only real solution, as I've said, to guarantee European security. This is why the transatlantic unity and European solidarity remain crucial for us. And in the context of the aggression against Ukraine, the pressure on Russia, including using sanctions, must be maintained until the acceptance and enforcement of a sustainable peace solution. Ladies and gentlemen, peace is our priority, the priority of all of us. It is the only thing that will ensure the framework for the reconstruction we all want to contribute to. That's why I'm welcoming the initiatives of the Trump's administration to start peace negotiations. But for a sustainable peace, it is absolutely necessary that negotiations reflect the interests of Europe and of Ukraine. And the solutions have to rely on guarantees of solid and irreversible security. Also, it's vital to make sure that the region of the Black Sea receives the necessary attention in the plans for the future security architecture for our continent, which also the destiny of the Ukraine depends on. Romania, as a neighboring state, is a logistic vital pillar, including through its corridors for grains, humane assistance and support that it has been offering from the beginning of the conflict in Ukraine. That's why in our dialogue with the European and North Atlantic partners, we have to focus on the accelerated development of the road infrastructure and transport infrastructure in Romania. This component has to be a priority, but also an advantage because it has brought benefits to all member states. You know that in the latest year we had hundreds of roads of high speed that have been commissioned, and now we are working on other hundreds of kilometers of highways and expressways. But it's very important that the rhythm of investment continues and be maintained. As you know, significant progress has been made when it comes to the maritime, river and air infrastructure. Constanța Port and the Danube ports, the railroad and Romanian airports are vital components for the new security configuration of Europe. These projects represent also investments in mobility, in regional development, and in economic connectivity, pillars that are essential for a truly strong and relevant Europe. Not lastly, it's very important to be aware of the fact that a democratic neighborhood that is prosperous and safe is the best way for our own security. This is why we are the supporters of the European path of Ukraine as well as of that of the Western Balkan states. Also in this context, the European integration of the Republic of Moldova has to be a major objective of our foreign policy, both from the standpoint of the bilateral strategic partnership, as well as for the common language, culture and history elements. Honored guests, the development of the infrastructure I mentioned earlier, as well as other major projects, were facilitated by the European funds allocated. And here the NRP plays an extremely important role. Thus, I insist on the importance of continuing investments both in local communities as well as in the large infrastructure. It is also essential to promote new projects, an approach that gives us the certainty of a constant and predictable growth of the Romanian economy. The discussions with our partners have to reflect the role of Romania in the success of European policies of expanding the integration, but enlarging the integration, but also our determination to make sure that the interests of the Romanian citizens are defended. I want to express my belief that these principles will be reflected also in the discussions about the future multi-annual financial framework, where, don't forget, Romania has a major interest when it comes to the common agricultural policy. Romanian agriculture, Romanian farmers have to be supported in the future without any doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, also when it comes to a hot topic in the European capitals now, namely the dimension of defense, I would like to remark once again that only that real complementarity between EU and NATO can truly guarantee European security. At the same time, I believe it is essential that at the level of the European foreign policy to quickly translate from a reactive approach to a proactive one. And the basis for this new approach has to be an integrated industry. Romania has to become an important player in the European defense industry, and advancing the progress of some recent projects has shown our concrete potential. At the same time, the transatlantic relationship remains essential for the prosperity and defense of our country, which continues to be a stability pillar at the Black Sea and on the eastern flank of NATO and the EU. So practically, the strength of the two structures is given by the strength of each member state, which we are not allowed to neglect. Thus, we support the increase of the American military presence in Romania, a relevant element when it comes to the strength, signals, and solidarity in this new geopolitical configuration. We also want to advance other crucial aspects of the strategic partnership, like the cooperation in the field of defense and security at bilateral level, but also within NATO, the cooperation in order to develop the energy sector, increasing connectivity of Romania, and attracting American investments in projects of common interest. Ladies and gentlemen, another goal that is important for Romania, a true country project, is the accession to OECD, a complex process that implies reforms and significant legislative adaptation. Our joint parliamentary committee for the accession to OECD, made of members from all political groups, plays a special role in the success of this national effort. We will continue to work closely related with the government and with our international partner to accelerate this initiative, with the final goal to finalize accession in 2026. Distinguished members of the diplomatic corps, our external action is even more efficient if it's more coherent, more coordinated, and more credible. But for that, we need a pragmatic and unitary approach that includes the presidency, the parliament, the government, and the diplomatic service. On behalf of the Chamber of Deputies, I assure you that we will remain an active, predictable and responsible partner that supports Romanian foreign policy, from which it is normal to expect relevant results for the interest of Romania on the short, medium and long term. Thank you.
Doamnă președinte, vă mulțumim pentru
Thank you for your intervention. We give the floor now to the host of this reunion, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Grindanu. Thank you, Mr. Abrodan. Distinguished guests, before talking with the official speech, I want to have a personal touch. Thank you. The discussion we have today on the stage between different parties that have many differences shows the road on Romania, on the European and transatlantic road, and the steadfast power to support the European path, and the clarity we have at political level to understand that the world, our borders, has only one option for Romania, namely to support peace by making the necessary efforts within the European framework, within the transatlantic partnership, to make sure that our neighbors have the tools they need in order to obtain this just and sustainable peace. And I would like to thank you all here, the diplomatic corps, those that are watching us, the academia, the government, the parliamentarians, the presidential team, those that were ministers during these years, the government coalition. I would like to thank you all, because there was a risk for this discussion not to look like that on the stage today. For a long time, foreign policy was a national consensus. There was no question mark in terms of the direction Romania has to have internationally, except for this time. And the work many of you have done during this time, the moral clarity, the strategic clarity, your patriotism, coping with a lot of criticism and pressure and keeping the clarity of decision and discourse is an essential reason for which today we can show that we are steadfast. We can still show that trusting Romania is a long-term investment for each of our partners, and we can show our citizens that the things for which they have worked so hard during so many years, freedom, prosperity, mobility within EU, respecting our values, Romanian and European values, all these are protected by our common work. I already met some of you last night at the UNESCO Festival opening, and I was thinking that it was so nice to go back to something very clear, namely the harmonious combination between our traditions, the Romanian identity, and the capacity to be part of an universal culture. What is specific to us is also European value and universal culture. It's a fake thing, the choice that others try to make, to choose between being Romanian or being an ally of foreigners, between protecting your traditions and being open. These things go together, and you know this best, and it's a direction you work for. At some point, there was a quote of UNESCO on the screen which said, which talked about the virtue of doing your job silently, working subtly on what you have to do, because in the end people will see the finality of your work. For us, the people here in this room today, the reality is a little different. I don't think we can do our job silently. People need to hear our intentions, our ambitions, our discussions when it comes to foreign policy, no matter the level. We need an open conversation with the society, because the source of power in foreign policy, the main source that ensures coherence on the medium and long term and guarantees the trust in our word, is the society, the citizen vote, either if we talk about those in the country or abroad. And that is why the conversation we have daily has to be a clear one, an open one, without taboo topics, an assumed conversation at each level. I am honored to welcome the annual meeting of Romanian Diplomacy, and I want to thank you all for your presence. Together we open this event, which represents both a moment of reflection. It was a difficult time, and we need to look at the lessons we need to learn, but it's also a moment of projection. It's important to keep the respect towards the past, the prestige it has brought, but looking towards the future, anchoring our speech and ambitions and actions in the stake for the future. A decade of change is the impact of Romanian diplomacy is the title of our reunion. And we are talking about the next decade. What we do this year to prepare the next decade and our impact in the world. We live, as President Grindeanu and President Abrudan said, we live in an era of transformation, geopolitical transformation, technology and artificial intelligence changes. Many things change in the geo-competitiveness, the way we talk about markets and free markets, and the power of negotiation of Romania depends on our capacity to use the voice within EU for the negotiation we have together. And indeed, agriculture is very important. Our capacity to connect our entrepreneurs to the resources they need is also essential. What we have to obtain together, our stakes, our goals, are just as clear as always. The safety of our citizens, prosperity and economic growth. Our connection with its citizens, no matter where they are, where they live, where they work. President Nicolae said here in the Parliament, the road back to home. And to this we add our capacity and duty to be with Romanians, no matter where they chose to live, to make sure that they are respected, that they have their rights protected, and especially to try to anchor a Romanian community, no matter where it is, to the future, not to the past. We have to protect our traditions and identity, but as a source of inspiration for a future of Romania that they are connected to be able to participate to what we build together. And for that, it is essential to rebuild trust. We need to change the paradigm without changing the pillars of foreign policy. We need to assume the voice that others expect us to have, not in the sense that they expect to always support their proposals or the dossiers of other countries. On the contrary, because now the Black Sea and the Black Sea security is an essential topic for the entire EU and for the transatlantic partnership. Romania is at the moment where it has to lead these discussions. We are expected to come with proposals, with ideas, and we are expected to be those that host and shape this agenda, because we know, together with our neighbors, what we need to do in this region, and we already started to do that. Russia remains the main challenge and will remain, irrespective of how the peace negotiation will end. And we need to pay attention to that, and we need to also be prepared. Romanian diplomacy is in the front line of this diplomacy. This way we support the posture on the eastern flank and we ensure security for the Black Sea. Yes, we need to defend and strengthen our partnerships with the US and other partners. The message is simple and direct. Romania, well, you can count on Romania. We need to be firm in defending our values and determined to contribute to the security of the region and of the world. The EU membership, NATO membership, and the strategic partnership with the US remain the foundation of Romania's foreign policy. And to this we add the accession to OECD. And we also have this very important element for our economy and security. And I want to thank all those that worked on this. I mean, the accession to the Schengen area. Romania remains committed to a stable and robust transatlantic relationship whose components act in synergy, in cooperation with the strategic partnership with the US, positioning at EU level and in the contribution with NATO. One of the criteria that will guide Romania's decision and actions will be that they contribute in the medium and long term to common Euro-Atlantic cohesion, security, competitiveness, and prosperity. We will apply this principle starting from two premises. The changes of the future cannot bypass the transatlantic relationship. It's a relationship that has to evolve and has to be strengthened commercially and from the standpoint of security. The intensity and the quickness of these changes will accelerate. We committed to have 5% of the GDP by 2035 for defense. Yes, it's an ambitious process of keeping together the responsibility we have. At the same time, it's an opportunity for Romania. It's a moment of opportunity for our defense industry, and it's a catalyst for what we should have done a long time ago, namely a better cooperation between the private and the public sector, paying more attention to the private manufacturers to see what we can build, what we can export, and how we can contribute as providers. We continue to strengthen the strategic partnership with the US, and here we are once again one of the strongest voices that support the strategic partnership with the US, the transatlantic partnership, and the need to always have a complementarity between the decision we make at the EU level and the way in which we take into account the goals of the US, because it is very clear that we are not just stronger together, but also our prosperity grows when we collaborate. And this is part of the agenda of the visit we will have at the end of this year in the US, where we have meetings to reconnect with the community there, and this take of increasing investments and the commercial trade and the defense component also. In the EU, Romania will continue to play the role of a steadfast member state. But beyond that, because we were stable for 18 years in this direction, we can play a more important role, namely to be partners for the accession process of our neighbors, to be a vocal ambassador of this, to be providers of technical assistance, to share our lessons. Romania is a success story. We can't forget that. We can't be shy in saying it, because there are a lot of people that criticize many moments of this success story. We increased our GDP 10 times after the revolution, 10 times. The GDP has increased 3.5 times since we accessed the EU. We went over 100 billion euros that were made available, investments that can be seen. For those in the region that are watching the accession to the EU, we are the target they see. This is where they want to be. This doesn't mean we are perfect or that the EU is a perfect project. In order to protect the EU, we can't place it in a glass box on display and that nobody touches it. No, this is not the way the EU has to be protected. It has to be protected by making sure that it is stronger and stronger, and recognizing that some criticism is legitimate. We need to make sure that the citizens are part of our goals that we decide together. We have to make sure that the resources that are made available for the business environment, for the civil society, and for the modernization of public services are accessible. We need to make sure that the pressure on reforms within the EU, it is correctly adjusted not to miss any opportunities, but also to be able to advance. We need to keep this balance between urban and rural areas, and Romania has even bigger stake here to make sure that this happens. And yes, for us, it's important for the goal we have in the governing program, a goal that has the vote of the parliament and it's legitimate, namely that the EU border won't stop at our border by the end of the next mandate. It's very important because it is a source of security for us, it is a source for economic growth, and for a source for a bigger influence within the EU and in the region. The relationship with the Republic of Moldova is and will remain essential. The Prime Minister just came back from Moldova. We'll discuss with him. I will go with President Nicu Șordan on the 31st of August, the day we celebrate Romanian language. And we have with us the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Popșoi. In Ukraine, the government was represented by Mr. Moștanu, and they had discussions with Kil Kelop, the special envoy of Mr. Trump, of President Trump, because once again, the European path, the peace in the region, and our capacity to be good neighbors in obtaining peace are essential elements for our future and for the future of the EU. In our discussions about Moldova and Ukraine, and in our discussion about the multi-annual financial framework, we intensify our relationships with our partners within the EU. It's not enough to be just members of the same EU, but we need to stay at the same table for our goals. We need to make sure we made the necessary efforts to strengthen the alliances and partnerships we have with states that have similar goals, to have common negotiations teams for the dossiers we care about. The commitment we made together, several governments, to access the OECD has been seen in the last 2 months based on how the indicators are reached. And we are firmly committed to this initiative. Our partner is a trustworthy one, and thank you. And it's part of almost all the bilateral conversations we have at almost every level. And this is where you clearly see how important this dimension is, a dimension that we want for the future also. Foreign policy is not personal, and it doesn't belong to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Foreign policy of Romania can be stronger if these good intentions have common clarity about our ambitions, about the steps that have been taken before, so that each meeting, each visit can advance that result. This means we need to talk more between each other, we need to share the results of each working group and of each visit, and we have to remain anchored and clear about the big goals, no matter what differences we may have at other levels. We have economic diplomacy, where the private sector is very decided to participate. Of course, is their first objective. And this is why this can be a component that significantly contributes for the budget for 2026. We have several directors with us today and I want to thank them, because academia, diplomacy is something we can grow. We have a decreasing number of Romanian students, and this is also due to demographic reasons. So in the academia, we have the openness and the resources to make sure we are a good host for international students. And this is not something that is competing with the experience of Romanian students. On the contrary, the value for them will increase. And for us, for diplomats, it is a long-term investment. Because once somebody knows Romania, especially as a student, will remain a friend of Romania. In the center of our mission, we place people. And Romania is not just here within the borders. Romania is everywhere where Romanians are. Yes, we build the road back to home, as President Nicușor Dan has committed to do, and the entire ecosystem, so that where we have Romanian communities, they should remain connected but also be very well coagulated there where they live. Everybody's asking for this energy and this capacity to host communities so that they can get to know each other and support each other and have a bigger power as community. And including the networks of Romanians that we have in various institutions and organizations have to find the hosts they need in order to better know each other and to act in a more coherent way for what we want to obtain together for Romania. And all these things require resources in the end. And yes, we are at a moment where each ministry, each one of us that are in a public office, need to carefully look at the fact that we don't have so many resources available now, and we need to manage them responsibly. But there are some things that need to be done. We need to strengthen our team. We have here in the room seniority, experience, wisdom, power, and influence. We need to bring also new generations, so we have an open competition to enter the diplomatic corps without putting pressure on the budget. But it's very clear that the future of diplomacy needs this balance between seniority, experience, prestige, and the energy, dynamism, and speed of action, and the capacity of understanding new technology of the new generation. So we are waiting for them to join us. Then we should talk about the heritage, and in the next sessions we will discuss about this. Many of you know, for me it was a surprise, I found within the ministry an inventory of many buildings we have outside Romania that are not being used at the moment because they didn't have the necessary investments to open the doors to guests. A part of the list of these buildings that were to be sold or restored come from the mandate of Mr. Pleșu. We have a solution for that. An investment fund that won't put a big pressure on the state budget, but will be financed by renting the spaces we are not using, that are not necessary there where we don't have active missions. We need to talk also about the new technologies, because there are many institutions in other countries that have introduced new technologies in the way they work, and we need to do that. First of all, we need to digitalize the consular services. Many steps have been made, we'll finalize it. But our assessment tools, the way in which we collaborate, also require that in order to have the necessary reaction speed. The diplomatic success of Romania depends on you and on your work every day, on the negotiations we have, on the capacity to resist pressure or resist public attention that is more and more intense. It also depends on the capacity we will have together in the following year to have the citizens with us and to work within the larger framework of the society. And this is not always visible or easy to measure at each step, but the reality is that each one of us here on stage and each one of us in this hall will be measured by his or her results. Next year we will meet together, maybe also here, but we will have here only the people that will not only deliver results but also support for those results. I am anxious to see the sessions that we will work together on. I received more than 1,000 proposals before this reunion from the members of the ministry, from the diplomatic missions, from the experts outside the ministry. We are building now the framework in order to be able to find each necessary solution. And I'd like to conclude with UNESCO, and that's because we are hosting in Bucharest more than 28 countries at this festival, and it's a good event for Romanian diplomacy in each field. Humankind has had bottlenecks, and it has overcome them, and we will do that. And they had the courage, and we won't lack the courage. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, distinguished guests. At this stage, the discussions will continue between the Prime Minister of Romania and the heads of the diplomatic missions, consular offices. And we kindly ask you to remain in the room if you are part of this category. We want to thank all the other participants, and we will see you back at the plenary session at 2 o'clock.